G'day viewers, I don't want to sound obsessed, but I want to talk about COVID-19, coronavirus. Again, I want to take a slightly different angle because I've just been talking about likely outcomes in terms of infections and mortality. But hey, maybe you've been rhetorically asking, Angry, could you talk about coronavirus but frame it in terms of class warfare? To which the answer is yes. Yes, I can. And I said I was going to move away from the likelihood of, a number of people infected and number of fatalities over, say, the next 12, 18 months. But on the class warfare front, I want to bring in one thing. This is another illustration of how badly people understand what a billion is. And I'm thinking in terms of, people have just gotten so used to referring to billionaires, they think that's a normal thing. Like, you can earn $1 billion. You can't. You can exploit the fuck out of millions of people and amass wealth, but you cannot, in any rational sense of the word, earn $1 billion. That number is so far beyond $1 billion. For instance, in terms of coronavirus, people saying, oh, I don't know why you're worried with such a low fatality rate and maybe not everyone's going to get infected. Well, honestly, no reputable person in health services thinks that, but to go with the most optimistic forecasts I've seen a reputable person make, it's a 30% global infection rate, whereas it's more common for people to say the infection rate will ultimately be somewhere between 50 and 100%. But let's go with 30% of the global population and a 1% overall fatality rate. Though again, a lot of estimates think it's going to be between 2 and 4% at the end of this little pandemic that we will be seeing unfold over the next year. So 1% with a 30% infection rate. This is where people underestimate what a billion is. Because with a global population of over 7.5 billion people, those numbers that you can convince yourself are small, 1% of 30%, is still like 25 million people, which I think we can sort of collectively agree is a fuck ton of people. That's why some people are a little bit worried about this, because it looks like being quite bad. The chances of us dodging a bullet and somehow getting any significant level of containment are vanishingly small. People looking at it, but look, oh my God, there's sort of comparatively few cases in Australia so far, or in America so far. I mean, where we are now is where Italy was 2 weeks ago. Okay? Are you looking forward to the next 2 weeks? I'm not saying it will spiral out of control as quickly as it has in Italy. I'm just saying it's not beyond the realms of possibility, is it? This whole thing, you shouldn't be worried about it because of what's happened so far. No one rationally is worried about what's happened so far. The people trying to contain it are worried about what's coming. Saying you shouldn't be worried because of the comparatively small number of infections and deaths so far is like the old story of the guy who thought it was a good idea to jump off a 100-story building. For most of the fall, he was right. And as he fell past each floor, people heard him saying, so far so good, so far so good, so far so good. That's all I want to say about that. But in short, billionaires shouldn't exist. They're all fucking criminals who should face prosecution for human rights abuses. But other aspects of the class war in relation to coronavirus. This mainly goes that thanks to neoliberalism over the last couple of decades, we've seen the hard-won advances fought for by unions over the previous century be whittled down till the point where they're almost gone. Where in most countries, a majority of the population is not in secure employment. Some statistics say up to 2/3 of Americans can't survive past paycheck to paycheck. If one paycheck is disrupted, their world will fall apart. And we are now looking at people being told on a large scale in the coming months, being told you shouldn't go to work. And if you have no health benefits, if you have no social safety net, you are up shit creek. And what this basically means is, quite rationally, people in casual employment are going to be a little bit reticent to pay attention to the ideas of, if you're sick, stay at home. And as we all know, the vast majority of people, like 96 to 98% of people at least, who contract coronavirus will recover, probably completely, with no serious complications. And with a lot of people, there are barely any symptoms, or no more severe symptoms than, say, a cold. But it's the vulnerable people who are at risk. So if you are younger and stronger and can't afford to not go to work, you're going to go to work. And a lot of these people, what are they in? They're in hospitality, food services, they're taxi drivers, they're Uber drivers. They interact with a huge number of people on a daily basis. So it's not so much that, well, I'm young and relatively strong and I don't have to worry too much about the effects. It's you're out there spreading the infection. And again, I have a hard time coming down on these people when there's no support for them. It's like, well, you should just stay at home with no money and, I don't know, guess I'll die, as the meme goes. Of course, infected people, or likely infected people, are going to go to work because they can't afford not to. It isn't going to be much better in Australia. We have much better industrial relations and social safety nets in Australia than they do in the US. But still, far too much of the population is in casual and insecure work. They're underemployed. We had a fucking industrial relations minister say, when the question was put to him, how are you going to look after casual workers who don't get sick leave, and you're expecting them to not go to work if infection spreads? How are they going to live? To which this fucking piece of shit goes, well, casual workers get paid more. They gave up those benefits for extra pay. So I think they've got more money put aside. They'll be fine. To which every underemployed casual employee that I know just went, the fuck did you say, you fucking sheltered, superior, elitist piece of shit? Casual employees have more money. Here's the fucking thing. Casual rates are a bit higher, not because you're getting so much more money so you don't need benefits. It's because you get less hours. By definition, someone on casual rates isn't working 40 hours a week. So someone on casual rates isn't getting more money than a permanent employee who hopefully has a decent sick leave plan. This is the shape of things to come. Again, without talking about rates of infection and deaths and whatnot, the other aspect is, I can't think of a better term to describe it than class warfare. These fucking privileged people in power are going to throw the most vulnerable people to the wolves. There's the talk their government's going to introduce a stimulus package, like the one they mocked Labor for doing, which largely sheltered Australia from the global financial crisis. We sailed through that better than almost any other country in the world because the government injected a lot of money into the economy. They funded a bunch of capital works that kept construction happening, so those people were in work, so they had money to spend, which kept other businesses in thing. And the fucking Tories who are in power now, that's like against their religion. It's like, oh no, our government's spending? No, the market needs to hold on. The market, as we've seen, illustrated beautifully with stock markets around the world, is going tits up really fucking quickly. Without massive and timely government intervention, an enormous number of people in Australia are going to have their lives ruined. Not because of sickness, because they'll recover from any sickness, but because economically they will be destroyed. Businesses will shut down, people will lose their jobs, there won't be any support because the people running the government are a horrific combination of clueless and straight up evil and spiteful. And that's probably going to have worse long-term effects than however many people die because of coronavirus.